So yeah, I think I figured out how I'm gonna do my, like, I won't say I'll permanently do it this way, but I think I know what I'm doing with the podcast trivia. So which one are we doing that with? Spreaker? I think it's either Spreaker or Anchor, right? Let me, a little scatterbrained here today. Let me see if I can grab my notes. My notes and my phone, because I'm going to need to look at a calendar. All right, so we've got the phone for checking the calendar. So what we know we're doing with podcast, that's a different thing. Okay. So it looks like the Spreaker is the one we hadn't chosen where we're going with yet. So Spreaker is where we're gonna end up doing the trivia. Now, I started calling it trivia because that's what I thought I was gonna do. I was gonna do a question, then tell you whether you're right or wrong. Question, tell you whether you're right or wrong in both channels. Now, that was the original plan. That plan has sort of gone out the window as I've more directly targeted where I'm going with this. So what I talked about, I think last time, was the possibility of doing something a little more along the lines of, there was a show I used to remember seeing a few episodes of, and it was apparently fairly popular. It had several seasons, and then I believe it's still fairly popular in Germany, if I remember correctly. It's a show called Fact or Fiction, where they tell you some story about somebody's supernatural experience. And they tell 3 of them in an episode, and then at the end of the episode, they ask you which of these is true and which of them, if any of them, are made up. And I think it's almost always 2 real recountings and 1 made up. But I mean, the thing that sort of always bothered me about it is, I mean, the real situations are always things that aren't real. They're not like, you weren't haunted by the ghost of your dead uncle. It's not a real thing. But somebody could report that they had that experience and believe it to be real. And so that recounting, that story, is real. They always had, I think they always had 1 story in an episode that was made up. But the references that I've seen suggest that the Fact or Fiction show was 3 stories per episode, usually about supernatural occurrences, that they then ask you at the end, how about this story? Was it real or was it made up? Well, I mean, real in the sense that, somebody believed that to be what happened. I mean, they're ghost stories or supernatural stories. It's not real. Yeah, but they always played it with that in mind, is what is a story that somebody told us they experienced versus what did a few guys and us sit down in a writer's room and figure out we could put on here as an extra story. So there was always 1 that was made up. And I feel like what I was looking at the other day was doing something similar. And I think as I explored the idea a little bit more, I think going into October, having that for the Halloween stories. So I'm thinking one per week. But there's a temptation to do more than that. I might even do like the week of Halloween, do a bunch more. And after October, I may just opt for going a different direction. But I do think just targeting Halloween directly as we go into October could be fun. Because what I'm thinking I'm going to do is 2 stories. Because remember, we've got 2 channels. And I tell you 2 stories in each episode. One I make up, and one based off of real spooky stories. And I tell you both stories, and then at the end of the episode, you pick which one you think is the real story, and you listen to my response there. And so the recorded response in left or right ear would be, telling how I came up with the story, or where the story originates. What's the original case for that story? Because I think the thing I'd like to do is not just retell an existing story, but rework an existing story. Because one of the things I was thinking about doing was, like, if you look at classical mythology and things like monsters from mythology or fairy tales or things like that, one of the examples that comes to mind for me is the changeling. And you have this idea of somebody in a mud thatched roofed house who's just had a baby, and their baby is behaving weirdly, and so they take the fire poker from beneath the kettle they're boiling their porridge in. I'm like, we're already at a point where, like, this is so disconnected from modern populations that it stands out as, well clearly that's going to be the real folk tale of a changeling, because it's not contemporary. It's so weirdly specific that it's a disconnect. It's a story, not an experience. But this is something people used to believe in pretty substantially. There were rules on how to identify and handle if your child has been exchanged for a changeling. It wasn't just stories. But if you took that same kind of story idea and had, a new mother, my cousin's roommate's sister or something like that, and they had a new baby, and it had been a particularly difficult pregnancy, but they were super happy that things seemed to have worked out. But the new mother discovered at night, when she'd start to drift off to sleep with the baby monitor on, she would hear the baby whispering, not like baby noises, but saying things in a language that didn't make sense. She'd go check on the baby and find the baby sleeping. So it was, she thought she was imagining things and then you just keep building on the story of this baby gone weird. And then you build that supernatural element. Like, that's a more modern take on the same concept. And as the story plays out, you play out along similar lines to original tales, but making it a reboot, a more contemporary example of that same kind of anxiety and fear and that part that plays in making those stories. And then that's the real story. And then my story might be, and I have like 3 stories already in mind that I have that I could use to make up a spooky story. So I feel like that's probably the best way to go for the first bit of this. There's a part of me wonders if I want to take that theme all the way on that channel. Now I'm trying to remember. Spreaker was how much leeway do I get? I think I have a cap on what I can upload. No, I don't want to be like, okay, yeah, that gets me right into my account. What the heck are you doing? No, that's why does this thing always mess with me? Okay, let's try it over here. No, not whatever I do with any of this, I should not do any computer work live, because that always screws me up. So Spreaker is the account I'll be doing it on. Plans and pricing. I have the free multiple podcast hosting. See features. Okay, so podcasting, 5 hours audio storage. So if I do 2 7-minute roughly stories, you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes max, 20, 40, 60. So I could do 3 episodes in an hour, and so three episodes an hour, 5 hours of content upload. I could do 15 episodes before I have to worry about it. That's the other thing. I need to check the calendar to see how many I would need for the whole year. So October. So October, if we did every Saturday, we'd have 5 Saturdays, or every Friday night. And Halloween is Saturday, I believe. So if we did every Saturday, and 1, 2, 3, 4 Saturday nights, and then Halloween we could do a mini marathon or something like that. That would be a few episodes. So if we did a 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe we might be able to get 2 hours of content in the bucket by Halloween. And then if we did Saturday nights ever after, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's basically 4 a month for November and December. So 4, if we make them 15 minutes long, 4 a month would be an hour per month. Potentially 2 hours in October. So October, November, December. I'd have 4 hours of content. By the end of the year, and I'd still have an hour left where I could do a little bit more with, or more likely give myself a little wiggle room for running over 15 minutes on my individual episodes. So I think that's probably the way I want to go with it. But I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with the spooky story theme. And that becomes important because if I'm going to name it Spooky Stories, True or False, or something like that, then it's like I kind of commit myself to that theme if I stick with that title. But one of the things I was thinking of was other mythical monsters, so dragon stories. What's a real story of a dragon from mythology versus something I made up? And so mythical, there's a part of me that wants to go with either a rhyme or alliteration. So, oh man, alliteration dictionary. I don't know if there's an alliteration dictionary. I mean, it just starts with an M. That's all that alliteration is. Alliteration is a stylistic literary technique in which neighboring words repeat the same initial consonant sound. So if I do something like monster, monster or make-believe, no. Oh, myth or no. Legend or let's do synonyms. That is not how you spell synonym. So synonyms for monster. That's not a very good return. Thesaurus.com. Let's give that a try. Horror? No. Centaur. Why is that? Monstrosity is not a synonym. It's another part of the same root word. Man. Thesaurus.com is going downhill. Goliath, Archfiend, Barbarian. No, these are not. No. Why is, like, linguistically hunting for these things just gets harder every year? Stories. Dude, why are you picking a fight with me? Okay, what are you doing? I've asked you to do something. There we go. Fable, no, we were already playing with that in another sense. Fantasy. See, they are technically pieces of fantasy, but folk tales, maybe? I don't know. It's, you need to sort of set up a duality, like fact or fiction was a decent pairing because it's, you accept a fact and the fiction is the opposite of it, but they are alliterative. They have the same starting sound. It's a really good pairing. Let's fact. Let's take a look at that. Fact. actuality, actual, no, geez, you get garbage response from that too. Pop-up ads aren't helping. No, all right, so let's just see what else we got here. Okay, that's not helping either. Actual. Reality. What's the opposite of reality? Bum, bum, bum. Abstract, falseness, concept, reality versus fantasy. That's pretty clear. Imagination. What else we got for imagination? Give me something that starts with an R. No, not resourcefulness. That's a weird approximation there. Actuality versus artifice. Artifice or actuality? Artifice. Let's do a lookup of that. Artifice. It's a phrase I tend to use differently because artifice, clever or cunning devices or expedients, especially as used to trick or deceive others. So artifice or actual? I mean, that feels like a bit of a stretch. Uh-oh. What just happened? Are you crashing? Oh, God, please tell me you're not crashing. Why did it just close Chrome? Oh, God. Why did you pick a fight with me like that? That is not helpful, dude. What just happened? I have no idea what just happened there. It freaked out on me. We still going? We're good? Holy crap. That was a little terrifying. All right, so this is my one working computer at this point. I don't need it pulling pranks on me. Oh, God. I need to start planning to back everything up, I guess, in case this one goes weird. All right, so I think the other thing to try to figure out in the meantime while I try to figure out a name for what I want to call it. I mean, I've got till the start of October before I need to do it, but I need to figure out what stories I'm going to use at least for the first 4 in October. I have the stories I'm going to make up for 3 of them, kind of roughed out as the foundations in my head. So I know, and some of them are based off of personal experiences. If I exaggerate them and twist them and make them about somebody else and make it so that maybe that person doesn't survive the story, I can make a ghost story or a spooky story for 3 instances in my life that I'm exaggerating to that level. So I have an idea for the stories for my half, the made-up half. The actual ghost stories, I think I have to do some digging to mine some ghost stories. What was that? Mine some existing ghost stories and rewrite them to a more modern take, or spooky stories. Maybe not all ghost stories. I could do things like the Jersey Devil or the El Chupacabra or the murderous hitchhiker style stories, or actual cases of like Jack the Ripper or something like that, like an existing serial killer from um, a different time, modernized. I don't even have to do that. I like the idea of doing non-real real things. So like Jack the Ripper, I mean, he's reached the point of legend, but like I don't want to do a Charles Manson. I don't want to do like rewrite like for modern times. What is the sicko who ate little boys? Yeah, I can't remember his name. It's probably for the best. So I don't need to make a modern version of those, and I don't need to recount those stories. But taking existing boogeymen, the cases of supposed hauntings that I could dig through local ghost hunter or whatever stories of the local haunted bar, of the woman who committed suicide when her lover such and such, and I just retell that story in a modern setting, with a more modern twist. So those would be, it's not the story necessarily that's true, it's the what's a real ghost and what's a fake one. So I feel like for the start of this, it will be ghosts mostly, or demons or monsters like that. I feel like for going forward, I may opt to do things like the story of Medusa, or like I just taking classical mythology or other folktale monsters and revamping them for modern times, and at the same time inventing new ones. I think that's the important thing. It's not the story being true or made up, it's the creating new monsters and testing them against real monsters. So is it like monster versus monster? Monster versus monster? Monster synonyms. Yeah, we did that already, and he gave me terrible examples. So we got beast, behemoth, demon, devil, dragon, freak, giant, horror, villain, whale, Frankenstein, abnormality, supernatural. Fairy, ghost, heavenly, metaphorical, mythical, psychic, superhuman, dark, mystic, occult, phantom, secret, superior, unknown, abnormal, concealed, hidden, impenetrable, invisible, legendary, mythological, numinous. That's an interesting one. Paranormal. Could we set it up as paranormal detective? Something like that? A paranormal mystery. You solve it. And so we explore horrors and things that go bump in the night. And sometimes it's ghost stories, sometimes it's monsters, sometimes it's legendary creatures. And we tell stories about them. And then we tell stories about ones I make up. I like this idea. This should be kind of fun. And then at the end of the episode, we say, one of these stories is real. One of these stories is made up. Which one do you think is the real story? And which is the made up? And then I think the other key there would be like when I say one of these stories is real, or is a real, one of these stories is about and see, that's the thing that's tripping me up. I can't say they're real. Medusa isn't real. Dragons aren't real. I can't do that. One of these stories is something I made up. And one of these is about something that legend says is real. Or something like that. And when I say one is made up and one is real, or which of these stories is real, and or if you think this story, if you say this story is real, I say that on one channel, and I say on the next channel, but if you think this one is real, and that's the channel you listen to in order to find out whether you're right. And when it comes to that, you follow that audio channel, say the left channel, out to the next part of the story, and it'll tell you this story is inspired by recountings of experiences by such and such at this date in this place. And if it's something I've made up, I say this story is one that I made up, inspired by some of my own experiences, or tell them how I came up with the idea for the story. I think that's sort of where I'm going to go with that. So at this point, what is it, Thursday today? How many days we got left before that hits? October. So it's September 11th. Is it? It's September 11th now. All right. So, wow, that snuck up on me. I'm going to try by the 13th to have a few of the other choose your own adventure style stuff scripted out, and maybe even start a few. But these have about three weeks before I have to have one of these made. So I've got a little bit of time on that front. But once that time comes, I'm going to need to do some serious work to get that going. But for right now, let's keep our eye on the prize of where we are right now. So the 13th is this Sunday. That's the next live stream that I think I'm doing. I'm hoping to have... I think it would be kind of interesting to do a couple of the... Because I have a couple different ideas. The idea you had last year, I think it was last year, when we were doing coming up on Halloween last year, you had the idea of doing the corn maze as a choose your own adventure style. I think that could be kind of fun to do, but I could do some practice runs before then. And then we have the sort of Bean Boozled approach to sound, where you give them a prompt. You tell them this next one is either good or bad. You get to choose and see if you make the right choice. It's the left ear, or the right ear is going to be about raindrops or a rainstorm. And the left ear is going to be about cats. And so the cat may be purring, and this could be a thunderstorm, or this could be cat yowling and gentle rain. So you don't know which one you're going to get until you pick and go. That's sort of like a game of sound decisions. Play it by ear is where I play a sound that's been altered, either slowed down or increased in volume or decreased in volume or something to that effect. I've altered the sound in some way, but it is still the sound. Can you tell me what you think this sound is? And you sort of get a multiple choice option of, what is this sound? Is this the sound of tearing bread? Or is this I don't know what else that would be. It would depend on what it sounds like. I could give two options as to what it would sound like. So, like when we popped bubble wrap, I could ask you, is this firecrackers or is this bubble wrap? And that one, I'd like to think I could do either of those. Maybe a test run within the next week or two. No promises. I should be able to figure out which ones I want to do by this weekend. The choice tales is the one I have to put a little thought and time into doing. The one choice is always wrong kind of choose your own adventure style. And Fabulous game is the 1 through 9 buttons on the keyboard game. And that one, I think I have to, that has to be scripted, a scripted story for that too, with multiple choice paths. So I need to work on those two predominantly. I need to write a couple scripts for those. And if I can, I'd like to get far enough ahead that I will have scripts so that I can do 1 or 2 per month at a predictable rate, so that I don't end up planning to do them and then having 3 months where I don't do any because I don't have the time to keep up with making the scripts for it. So that's the big one on my list right now, is to just start seeing if I can pull together some quick scripts for a Choice Tales and Fabulous game. Because the other two are likely to be something that is more contingent on the sounds that I can build. So I can sit down with a microphone on a weekend and record 5 different sounds or 3 different sounds or whatever you want to do. And then decide what kind of options to tweak them, and then just do the recorded portions of what does this sound more like to you? Does this sound like option A, or does this sound like option B? And then explaining your right or wrong and left and right audio channels, and just do the edit up. The biggest chunk of the work on those is just putting the narration and editing into it. Don't need a lot of script for it. The big 3, I think, are going to be the ghosts, like the spooky stories, and the Choice Tales and Fabulous game. They all have to do a fair amount of scripting. So I think what I'm on for the next couple of days is the hunt for spooky stories that I can update or translate over. And then invent spooky stories. Because I've got 3 that I could potentially do. We'll see where it goes. We're about 41 minutes in. That's probably a good place to cut it for tonight. I guess we'll see where I'm at on Sunday. Any thoughts? Feel free to share them. You can comment, or I'm super pooped today. My brain's not full speed. I will catch you on Sunday. Until then, thanks for joining me, and take care and have a good night. Spooky stories. There's got to be a better way to phrase that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. We'll figure it out.